She vanished immediately after high school, but not before she was accepted into our organization. You're only a temporary employee, and she didn't even finish college. That is absurd. At my new job, I unintentionally encountered with a high school friend who I had severed contact with because of their contemptuous behavior toward me. She seems to think that because of specific circumstances, I didn't go to college, but I am just a temporary employee. She then grinned wickedly and said, "I'll start taking extra good care of you today." I made the decision to grin in return. "No, that's my line," I remarked, observing my classmate's dejection. "My name is Henry. Admittedly, my family is rather rich. My mother stays at home, and my father owns a business. My parents, who were single, didn't cut any corners when it came to my education and sent me to private institutions. My leadership qualities in elementary school were likely a result of my average performance in both academics and athletics. Since I went to a highly esteemed K-12 institution, I inevitably advanced to its middle school. I kept taking charge of the class in middle school and even held the position of class representative. With the help of my parents, I was able to keep up my good marks and have fun in school even in primary school. One day, however, a new student entered my class by transfer. My name is Elizabeth. I still find it a little challenging to speak English because I lived in France until last month. It's good to meet you. Unquestionably gorgeous, Elizabeth was born in France to an American mother and a French father. She quickly gained the class's attention. Excitement was running high in the classroom. "Elizabeth, the seat next to Henry is yours." Our teacher, Mr. Miller, added, "He's the class representative, so feel free to ask him for help if you have any trouble." "Mr. Miller, isn't this a bit of a dump on me?" I joked, realizing that I was getting all the responsibility. "Henry is more personable for someone your age as the class representative. Okay, let's get the morning meeting underway. Elizabeth, will you kindly have a seat?" he answered. Elizabeth took a seat beside me. I said, "Nice to meet you," to her. She said, "Nice to meet you too," which made me happy. Elizabeth had breathtaking beauty. Because of her unusual background, she moved to this prestigious middle school from France. She became the talk of the class and the grade. I believe that part of the reason she was so popular was her kind and innocent attitude. Elizabeth's English, which had become a little uncomfortable after her previous sojourn in France, was also regarded as endearing, which contributed to her popularity. It turned out that Elizabeth and I lived next door. The long vacant house next door had a moving truck in front of it, and I recalled my mother stating, "The Martins moved in next door." Elizabeth's name immediately made me think, Martin is a common surname, and I had no idea she would be a classmate. It was by coincidence that I met her as we were leaving for school one morning and realized she was my neighbor. I figured it would be weird to avoid her as we were classmates, so I said something. "Good morning." "Happy morning," she questioned. "Why are you here?" "The house next door is where I live." "You live next door to me." "It appears to be the case," she said. "Want to walk to school with me?" "Yes, let's go." It turns out that Elizabeth still preferred speaking French, even though she and her mother talked English frequently at home in France. She said, "Henry, how do you say this in English?" "It's flower, which means fleur in French." "Flower? You got it." Indeed, the pronunciation of the native tongue is somewhat distinct, isn't it? English is challenging. The only option is to adjust to it. "Like this, let's discuss a lot," I answered. Elizabeth enthusiastically replied, "Sure," and the two of us headed out. We soon began walking together to school. Someone inquired, "Are you two dating already?" "We just happen to live next door," I said. "Also, I serve as her mentor here." It seems that everyone in the class agreed with it, stating, "Well, that makes sense." That's how we kind of just fell into walking each other to and from school. Elizabeth would teach me French, and I would teach her English while we were out for walks. She mentioned that my English lectures were very straightforward, and that her French sessions were simple to understand. This helped me speak French much better and got me better grades in the language. Elizabeth's English also became more fluent over time. Before we knew it, we were entered our third year of middle school and had to consider our options for the future. Since our school served grades K-12, we could attend the same institution for both high school and college. But I chose to go to a different high school because I wanted to see the outside world. I passed the entrance exam for the county's best high school after talking to my parents and receiving their blessing. Mr. Miller also gave me encouraging words, telling me that, with your grades, you'll be fine. I was surprised to see Elizabeth at the same exam location. She applied to this high school as well. "Why are you here, Elizabeth?" I inquired. She smiled and continued, "I thought I'd try applying to an external school." Elizabeth passed too, and that autumn we both started at the same high school. Elizabeth's beauty, enhanced by her mixed origin, became even more noticeable throughout high school. She excelled academically, was well-liked, and was often in the spotlight. She was unaware that she was placed into the school's beauty contest, which took place during the fall festival, from the very beginning. Her rise to fame began to make her appear to me like a far-off TV celebrity. It's peculiar. We used to live next door and sit next to one another in class. Since I went to the same middle school as Elizabeth, I made an effort to avoid being asked by other guys for her contact information, to forward letters to her, or to assist in setting up meetings. We attended high school together at first, just like we had in middle school, but as Elizabeth got preoccupied with her responsibilities as class representative and began attending classes with other friends, we gradually drifted away. Well, I established acquaintances of my own too, so maybe there was a social circle divergence by nature. Though I thought it was probably for the best, I felt a little alone because things couldn't continue the way they had in middle school. We had grown distant, although we still exchanged pleasantries and spoke periodically. Our friendship had become that of mere peers. In high school, I enjoyed stepping outside of my school and made acquaintances with classmates from different schools after I started working part-time. I took the liberal arts route in my second year and ended up in Elizabeth's class, although we didn't really communicate. When we did talk, it was in short bursts and as peers. In our liberal arts class, I hung out and talked with a few other males more and more, and after school, I would go directly to work. Elizabeth and I rarely spoke because she was preoccupied with club activities. I started focusing more on a passion I had with pals from different schools in my senior year of high school. Although I would much prefer be doing this than go to school, I had to go. To be honest, I had started to ignore school, showing up only in name, and frequently just nodding off for the entire class. At times, I would nod off in class and receive reprimands from my teachers for it. Elizabeth, a class representative, then asked me out of the blue one day, "Henry, what are you doing at such a crucial time in your senior year?" We hadn't had a talk like this in a very long time. "Just occupied with a lot of stuff," I answered. "What kind of things?" "Elizabeth, nothing to worry about. Simply put, I like doing it." Elizabeth became extremely upset upon hearing this. I thought to myself, absent-mindedly, that Elizabeth still shows her feelings. "I can't say much because it's none of my business, but you should exercise caution. It will have an impact on your transcript and grades," Elizabeth said. "Yes, I will pay closer attention. Regards, Elizabeth." Despite my response, I kept myself occupied and slept through the majority of the school days. After overcoming the midterm and final exams, we had summer vacation. I didn't take any summer courses to prepare for my university admission exam. Instead, I worked part-time. Everyone else was taking courses. I didn't go to school during this time because I didn't go home very much. "Aren't you taking the summer courses?" was a question that Elizabeth and other classmates asked me in messages. All I could say in response was, "I'm too busy with various things to attend." Then, as September rolled around and summer vacation came to an end, Elizabeth materialized in front of me as I greeted students and went into the classroom. "Henry, what do you mean by not attending any of the summer classes?" she yelled. Huh. You were the only student absent from our class. What were you doing when all of them were putting in a lot of work? Though I couldn't quite figure out why Elizabeth was so furious with me for skipping the classes, I made the decision to be open about my summertime decisions. I've made up my mind not to attend college. I'm going to pursue something I want to accomplish once I graduate from high school. Elizabeth gave me a shocked expression. It's unbelievable. You constantly nod off in class, and now you're not even thinking about going to college. I had no idea you were such a sluggish person. Slothful. I laughed. Life is more than just attending college. Besides, if I want to, I can always go to college. However, I would prefer to concentrate on my goals for the time being. Life isn't always simple. It won't just happen like way, Elizabeth remarked, appearing to shed a tear or two. She was getting quite emotional, and although I knew that life isn't easy, I didn't understand why. I am aware, I answered. That's why I'm working hard right now, getting ready so I don't fail. Elizabeth, though, shot me a cold look and went back to her chair. Elizabeth never spoke to me again after that. Elizabeth's mother later told me that her daughter had been accepted to a renowned national university. All of my classmates seemed to have been accepted into universities, with the exception of myself. Henry, you should consider going to college too, my teacher, Mr. Anderson, would often say, but I would never listen. I eventually left home after receiving my high school diploma. After 10 years, I was 28 years old. I had since followed my own route, accomplished my objectives, and was working every day. I was at my new job place today. Being employed somewhere different from my prior place of employment thrilled me. I hoped my new coworkers would be decent individuals as I wondered about them. I was thinking this as I heard my name called. Henry. I spun around and saw Michael, my coworker. Hey, Michael. It's good to see you. Looking good. Of course, man, you too. I gave Michael, who I hadn't seen in a long time, a fun slap on the shoulder. What brings you here, busy as you are? I thought I'd give you a tour of the office. Are you serious? You? Yes, I do know the most about this place. Come on, novice. Let's go. I'm not a rookie, I said as Michael gave me a tour of the workspace. I wanted to check out what was going on in the office during lunch, even though the company had its own restaurant. I strolled around and saw a cafe close by. It seemed like they had a menu for lunch. Perfect. I'll eat here, I said to myself. I chose to walk inside the cafe. I was looking at my phone after taking a seat and placing my lunch order when I thought, could it be Henry? When I looked up, I saw a woman standing there after hearing my name. Her features were lovely, and she looked a little like my childhood friend Elizabeth. However, it's been about a decade since my last encounter with Elizabeth, so I was clueless about her current appearance. Oh, why do you know my name? It's Elizabeth here. Remember how we were together in high school? Really? Really? Elizabeth. Startled, I got to my feet. I am Elizabeth, yes. I too had doubts about your authenticity as Henry. It startled me that you knew who I was. I just thought you looked similar, Elizabeth laughed. It seemed like a long time, for some reason, since I'd last seen Elizabeth grin. I felt like I hadn't seen her grin much, and it wasn't simply because it had been a while since we'd met. I said, but why are you here? Oh, I just transferred to a company nearby. Which company? So, are you familiar with Moonworld? That's where I currently work. Moon Planet. Elizabeth worked for my company, although I was unaware that she was employed there. It was wholly unanticipated. Actually, I heard that a new person was starting today. Is that you, perhaps? Perhaps. Mid-career hires were a common sight at our organization, where new hires weren't really unusual. You're a temp then. Elizabeth gave me a condescending look, as though she had reached a decision. You disappeared right after high school, and now you've managed to get into our company. Hold on. Her remarks seemed rather caustic. You're simply a temp then, and you didn't attend college. That is absurd. With a cheeky smirk, Elizabeth continued to giggle and remarked, "As a regular employee and your senior, I'll be taking good care of you starting today." I smiled and said, "No, that would be my line," to Elizabeth. "What?" she questioned. "I apologize, but I'm in charge of you. I'm not a temporary worker. As vice president of Moon World, I am." My remarks caused Elizabeth's mouth to drop open. She asked, "What are you talking about?" After a little pause, "Is this a joke of any kind?" I pulled out my business card and gave it to Elizabeth, who was still in shock, saying, "It's no joke." The text said, "Vice President of Moon World Corporation, Henry Carter." This has to be a hoax. No manner is possible. Is this a fake of any sort? Frenziedly, Elizabeth turned the business card over and examined it by holding it up to the light. "I mean, there's no reason why I should make up a business card like that," I remarked. She was still in shock at the news. "No, that's not true," I said. That's when I heard, "Henry, hello." It appeared like Michael, President Thompson, was calling people out today. "Hey Elizabeth, are you also here for lunch? Are you dining here, Henry? Would you mind if I joined?" Michael inquired. Naturally, I said, "Sure, let's eat together." After taking a seat next to me, Michael asked the waiter to bring the same lunch. "This person is our company's vice president, President Thompson, huh?" Elizabeth, still in shock, questioned Michael. He said nonchalantly, "Yeah, that's correct. We just moved Henry, who had been working for us overseas, to headquarters. Were the two of you acquainted? Are you roughly the same age, I take it?" "We were classmates in middle and high school, Elizabeth and I answered. "Whoa, truly. That's a rather strange coincidence," Michael chuckled. Before long, Michael and I had the lunch we had ordered, and we talked as we ate. Elizabeth looked shocked, muttering, "So it really was true," as she observed Michael and myself having a friendly conversation. When I started working at a fast food restaurant in high school, that's where I first met Michael. We clicked right away because we were the same age. "I want to do something big rather than just live an ordinary life," he declared one day. I wholeheartedly concurred with him. I resisted the thought of living a life consisting only of attending college, landing a position at a corporation, and working there. It didn't look all that intriguing. In retrospect, it may have been a naive desire to stand out from the crowd, but Michael and I made the decision to bring our dream to life. We talked about our options as a team and ultimately chose to launch our own business. We decided to source these goods from throughout the world and sell them as Michael, to our surprise, appreciated adorable things and curiosity. Elizabeth had taught me enough French on our school bus rides that I could traverse the world to find these products, while Michael, who was enrolled in a commercial high school, took care of the paperwork. We skipped high school and used my father's business guidance to get ready for our endeavor. We wrapped up our arrangements as our high school graduation drew near, and Michael and I launched our business not long after. While Michael marketed the things in stores and online, I made numerous trips to the US and other countries to get merchandise. Naturally, on our first international travels, we encountered numerous difficulties and risks. We frequently had things that broke easily or had our phones and wallets repeatedly stolen. Michael and I conquered these challenges together, and as a result, our company's transactions rose over time and it successfully expanded. We were successful in expanding our staff and building the business to its current state. We now have offices in the US and abroad, and I was working at our international branch until recently. However, President Michael said, "Isn't it about time you come back to the US?" Michael was quoted by magazines frequently as a successful young president, and he would never mention me, his co-founder. He found it difficult to understand why I wasn't there because I was overseas. Michael proposed that we conduct the interview together, as it would be less complicated. However, I was beginning to miss America and wanted to go back, so I gave the overseas branch to someone else and headed home. I was unwinding at a cafe close to the workplace after work while I was getting used to working in the US. There was Elizabeth once more as I let out a sigh and gave myself some space. She appeared to have something to say as she stood next to me. "Hey, Elizabeth, how are you?" I inquired. "Henry," I wanted to apologize. "For what purpose?" I motioned for her to take a seat first and promptly placed an order for a drink. "About the other day, I apologize. I made fun of you for graduating from high school because I thought you were a temp. Stop worrying about it. I was the one who started the miscommunication. It was natural that you were puzzled because a new temporary employee named Robert actually joined the business the following day. And without really knowing anything about you, I said in high school that you were a slothful person. Did you mention that? I see. I made fun of it. Now that I can admit it, Henry, I've always liked you." "How come?" "Really?" The startling confession from Elizabeth stunned me sincerely. "I was grateful for your kindness toward me following my transfer, and I had a great time strolling to and from school with you. I went to the same high school as you because of this, but in our second year, things started to go our separate ways. I hoped we could be closer again when we were in the same class, but we didn't communicate much and you were always asleep in class. I felt a little deceived since it seemed like you drifted away. But that was all just my egotistical feelings." Elizabeth then had the same thoughts. "I used to think that we may be able to get back together if we attended the same institution. However, I became really disappointed when you said that you were not going to college. I labeled you lazy and remarked that life isn't easy because of this. I now regret doing that." Elizabeth laughed at the end as her voice became formal. "And even though you were always sleeping in school, you were always at the top of the class," she said. "I made sure to stay awake in class in high school," I answered. "I didn't want my grades to be brought up. In spite of appearances, I did my own studies. I maintained my grades at least at a minimum since my parents told me I could do anything I wanted as long as I graduated from high school." I reflected. Those were rewarding days, even though they were difficult due to balancing studies, part-time work, and startup preparations. If your grades are good, high school professors don't say anything. Elizabeth said, "Yes, but they kept asking me to go to college." They would, of course. For a prestigious school, it would be significant if a top student decided not to attend college. "In fact, Mr. Urson instructed me to get you to enroll in college," the woman remarked. "Mr. Urson also questioned you. He had to have been very desperate," I laughed in response. After that, Elizabeth and I had a great talk that made up for all the time we hadn't spent chatting in high school. Elizabeth seemed to be drifting away from me at the time, and I could see that she was growing in popularity. When Elizabeth heard this, she muttered, "I wonder if we wouldn't have drifted apart if we had been more honest with our feelings back then." I replied, maybe, wondering what Elizabeth would have thought if I had informed her at the time. "Actually, I'm starting a business." Would she have encouraged me to pursue that concept further, or would she have told me to quit up? "Hey, Elizabeth, how about we start over as friends again?" I said after a low period of silence. Startled, she exclaimed, "What?" I was quite pleased with your confession. Even though we were friends in high school, we drifted apart. But lately, I've been thinking that I want to enjoy our time together once more, I added. Elizabeth, with tears in her eyes, nodded. "Yeah, let's start over." Elizabeth and I started hanging out as friends and coworkers again after that. We even went out to eat together, sometimes with Michael and other staff members, and just spent time together. Elizabeth still had that adorable, naive quality. Even if we didn't always agree, I liked our days together. I eventually came to the conclusion that I liked Elizabeth and desired more time spent with her. The turning point came when Elizabeth, inebriated, declared one evening, "Walking to and from middle school with you was the happiest time of my life." Really, I always believed that spending time with you was the happiest moment of my life, even when I dated other people. I was truly moved when she admitted it, and I realized how much she cared for me. During one of our dinners, knowing Elizabeth was unmarried, I made the decision to come clean. After spending time with you as friends, Elizabeth, I've come to like you. Do you want to go out with me? I inquired. Yes. Elizabeth nodded swiftly, and our dating life began. Today is Elizabeth and my relationship's first anniversary, which happened about a year ago. I've made the decision to pop the question to Elizabeth today, preparing the ideal classic pop. The location is a restaurant with a stunning view of the night sky. I worked together with the restaurant staff to organize the surprise proposal. I excused myself from the dinner halfway through to change into a tuxedo. I told myself that even if I could be going overboard with the outfit, it's a special occasion. I then knelt down in front of Elizabeth at our table and promised to keep her happy forever. "Are you going to marry me?" She nodded, tears welling up in Elizabeth's eyes. Yes, I'd be honored. After losing something significant due to prioritizing my own goals, I was thankful for the opportunity to start anew and experience this kind of happiness. I want to prioritize spending time with Elizabeth going ahead. Elizabeth might make mistakes too, even if I'm still young. But this time, we want to stay together and honestly share our opinions so that we don't drift away as we go through life.